You are tuned into The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, and my lovely, lovely assistant, Lisa
You call
Waters
me an
Lane.
assistant.
I said lovely. So, anyway, Lisa, she comes in with your garden questions. Just what are people talking about in the landscape? What are your neighbors seeing in their yard? And we try to share that. We get through this through emails or just things on the floor or just people coming in. These are the top questions for this week. Lisa, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Good
Yeah,
to be back.
it is good to be back. So
I didn't go anywhere.
don't you look forward to this segment every single week?
I do.
Actually, it's kind of hard to come up with topics every week.
It is.
10 minutes nonstop. And then I do the other, you do 2 segments. I'm doing 4. So an
Yeah.
hour's worth of airtime.
It's true, but you have a lot more words rolling around in your head than I do in mine. So.
Anyway, what kind of questions we got? What do you
Sure.
got going on?
Well, Sherry has a question. She moved into a home with some lovely grasses, Carl Forrester, pampas grass, and she wants to know, do they have to be cut back, first of all? And if so, what time of year do you do it?
So your grasses are in all their glory right now. So pampas grass, coral foresters, bunny grass. We've gotten some huge selections of grasses in. They're all in bloom. They're just stunning.
They're gorgeous.
You let them bloom through the end of the year, usually sometime in January. They're now tan colored, so their green is pretty much gone for most grasses. Sometimes pampas can hold it a little longer, but you enjoy the structure. So even with just the plumes, and now they're straw colored, they're still really pretty, good texture, colors, just interesting. And so enjoy those. Sometime in January, the snows come, there's been a rain or two, and they start to lay over, and then they start to lose their shape. So that's your cue. You don't look so good anymore. I'm cutting you off. And then you go through and you cut them back. Most grasses, you're cutting back pretty much to ankle level. If they're really big, like pampas grass, you might go knee level or so, but you're cutting back to that curly Q or matted area that you'll naturally see at the base of that grass. Cut it back. And then in March, you're going to fertilize it again, and it will start to grow back up, and it grows and grows and grows. And then sometime in summer, it starts to bloom again. And then it just does that through the end of the year. So it's got a very long, pretty cycle to it.
Right.
Even whether it's green or brown or straw colored, sometimes they turn red, they turn different colors. Enjoy that. Don't feel like you're rushed, but you prune back grasses after the new year through March or so. And then you just enjoy them the rest of the year. The main thing with grass is you need to fertilize them because they're very, if you fertilize them more regularly, they get better color, they get chubbier, fuller, and the plumes on them will be very large and way more of them. If you don't fertilize them at least 3 times a year, the like pampas grass be real thin and wispy. They look mangy, not sexy, voluptuous, pretty. Just oh my gosh, look at me.
Voluptuous.
Well, some grasses are. they have that pretty look to them.
That is true. Yeah. I would agree. So
Did
good
we
idea
answer
to
it all?
cut them back. Some people don't do it, but it really is healthier for them to be cut back.
The one that doesn't get cut back would be like bear grass, B-E-A-R, bear, the native
That's
one.
not even really a true.
Yeah, but it's called a grass. But don't cut that one because it's evergreen. Yuccas, those are not grasses. They stay evergreen. So don't cut those back. And we're talking true ornamental grasses, not lawn. A pretty grass. It's up, knee high to head high, somewhere in the yard. Those do better when they're cut back in the winter, early spring sometime. And then if you don't, what happens is like pampas grass. It has brown stems, leaves coming out, and then you get some green ones. You get this mishmashed green, brown. If you just cut it back, fertilize it, it'll all be green and pretty and just looks better, cleaner, neater.
Okay. All right. Next question is from Anne. She's pulling out her summer veggies. Done, tired of them. Just done.
Okay.
So she wants to get the bed ready for fall crops.
Yeah.
And she wants to know, is it okay to plant rather, quickly after you pull the summer ones out?
Yeah.
And what kind of nutrients and what would you add to the soil?
Yeah. So that's so we have 3 main planting seasons here. Early spring. So really 3 early spring. So you're planting all that leafy stuff. We're talking March and April, first part of May. It's still frosty, but it's bright days. Those you're planting spinach and lettuce and kale and cabbage and broccoli, Brussels sprouts, all those you're harvesting the flower or the foliage.
Mhm.
Those things like the cold. So you plant them while it's still cold out. Then comes the summer planting season. That's what we're talking about. Cucumbers, saying you're harvesting the fruit. So tomatoes, eggplants, watermelons, pumpkins, things you're harvesting the fruit, not the foliage. Those are all summer plants. They don't like the cold. They like the heat. So typically the locals here, at least in the central highlands area of Arizona, we're planting after Mother's Day because that's typically the last frost, typically, not always, but we'll start planting there. Then they're starting to lose production. So you've picked the eggplants off and they just aren't producing like they were. The days are getting shorter. So the summer plants love, 24/7 daylight. If you could give it to them 100 degrees, that's good. They're okay with all that heat. It's now cooling down and the nights are cool and the days are shorter. So they're starting to, some of those big tomatoes, they just aren't forming tomatoes like they were 2 months ago. So when they stop producing, rip them out of the ground. You're done with them. Why water those things? They don't need it. And then that frees up space for the next season, which is we have a whole nother fall season, kind of like the early spring. The same plants you plant in early spring, you can plant starting now, and they'll produce right through winter. So kale, we pick a Swiss chard right through winter. Parsley, spinach, all the winter, the things you're harvesting, the leafy things, those go in now. And so if you were to have, let's say, lettuce back in the summer, it turns this bitter off color. It doesn't like the heat. It goes to seed. You plant it now, taste it just melts in your mouth. It's just so you can get to all these exotic varieties. So plant now. How to get the soil ready? Those summer plants are really big plants, and they eat a lot of the nutrients. They use it up out of the soil. So you want to reintroduce that. So add some compost, maybe even some manure. If it's a raised bed or a container, add some more potting soil and just add some freshness into that soil and then start plugging right away. You can plant right now through really Halloween or so. You got quite an open window here. And we've got crop rotations. The fall crops are here. So all those starts, it's better to go with a start right now than a seed.
I agree.
So they root out faster. So I think
you get more crop.
I beat around the bush a couple times, but I think we answered her question. Yes, do it.
Yes. Yeah. And add stuff into your soil to freshen it back up.
Fertilize. Yep.
Right. The all-purpose food and the fruit and veggie food would be excellent.
Fruit and veggies probably ideal for those crops because we've loaded that particular food. We make our own foods with a lot of calcium. And the calcium is what brings out the flavor, makes a cauliflower size head bigger, brings on more broccoli heads, makes them sweeter, better tasting, and larger.
All right. Well, our next question is from Ted. He had a large Arizona cypress that got taken out by a car. Part of it got taken out.
Oh, that hurts.
His question is, will that put new branches out, or is that always going to be a horrible reminding scar?
It's always going to be a horrible reminder. Conifers. So all your evergreens, the things with needles typically are called conifers. So cypress, cedars, junipers, spruce, fir, they're all conifers. Conifers do not, typically their new growth comes on the tips, outer edges, and on the inside of the tree. If a major branch is broken off, the bark is so thick that the new leaf buds can't really come through that bark. And so it never really grows on the inside of that tree. So I don't know what happened, but if the tree hit it, broke a branch, and had a big mangy scar down the trunk, paint it black. I mean, there's nothing you can really do. Plant a tree in front of it.
It's not going to put new limbs out.
Unfortunately not. Right. What you can do, what will happen is if you fertilize, I have to give it a really good dose. So that's for the all-purpose plant food. That's it's more acidic. Evergreens love that food. Right. Put it on now. Put it on again, let's say next March. And what you're going to do is not grow out of that mark, but make the side branches to grow sideways, filler. So it'll fill in from the side branches. It'll finally grow that way because it gets all the sunlight. I wouldn't try to grow it out of the trunk, but out of the whatever those side branches are. And Arizona cypress, they get 25 feet wide. I mean, they're magnificent. Encourage it to get wider and chubbier, and it'll all be good.
So should he? We're out of time. Never mind.
Are out of time. There we go. Good questions this week, folks. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners, will be right back after this.